Odd. Welcome, friends. Welcome back to the kitchen. Welcome back to Sunday morning and the old cookbook show. So, a few weeks ago, I made a steak and kidney pie from an old cookbook. Total nightmare for me. Kidney, not my thing. Not my thing at all. But I had to make rough puff pastry to put on the top. And the rough puff pastry that was part of that recipe was amazing. So, on yesterday's Saturday morning show, I made rough puff pastry, showed the method and the recipe, and we've made that. And today I'm going to use it in something called amber pudding. Now, this is an old cookbook, falling apart. It's called Williamson's Cookery. My edition is, I believe, the 6th edition, printed in 1864 in Edinburgh, Scotland. Williamson's was a cooking school in Edinburgh. It was also, they did catering, and they catered frou-frou fancy events. So this is sort of top-notch cookery, or cookery for people that had a lot of money. And we're going to do something called amber pudding. I'm only going to do half of the recipe because I don't need the whole thing. So I've got this pot, and right now it's on low heat, and to it I'm going to add butter and sugar. And I've got it on low heat to start because I have to deal with some eggs. I need to crack some eggs and separate them. So I just want that to start melting together. Eventually we have to bring it to a boil. But I don't want it to do it unattended because, you know, that could go horribly wrong. So we're going to separate some eggs. I need to beat the whites and the yolks separately. So the whites are going to go into the copper bowl. And I really thank the person who sent me this copper bowl as a gift. If you haven't noticed, I use it all the time. Really lovely piece of equipment to have in the kitchen. Last yolk in the bowl, and give that a bit of a whisk. And we'll look at our sugar and butter. And the butter is starting to melt, so I can pay more attention to it now. I think I'll turn the heat up a little bit. Okay, now into the egg yolks. What I've got here is orange peel that I've diced up. So I took a potato peeler and peeled off the orange peel, just the zest, left as much of the pith behind as I could, diced it up. That is one orange. One orange happened to be 1 ounce. I don't know how that works out, but that's the way it works out. So we mix that into the egg yolks. The part that is slightly terrifying about this recipe is that once I bring the sugar and the butter to a boil, I have to whisk it into the egg yolks, essentially tempering the egg yolks like you would if you were making a custard with milk. But I've never done it with a mixture of sugar and butter that's boiled. Could be interesting. Now the butter is almost melted. It is boiling at this point. There is nothing in the recipe that tells me or indicates that I should be caramelizing this. It's just bring it to a boil. And part of that bringing it to a boil is making sure that the sugar is dissolved and dissolved into the butter. And so it's definitely boiling at this point. My initial thought was amber pudding. It's amber because I'd be creating sort of a caramelization of the sugar here in the pot. That's not what it's asking for. So maybe the amber color comes from the orange peel. I don't know. So pouring and whisking, pouring and whisking, pouring and whisking. Should have put down a wet cloth to keep the bowl from spinning. We're going to be okay. That worked out just fine. Okay. Okay, so that worked out just fine. Nice amber color. It is from the egg yolk and the orange peel. As with every cookbook from this time period, it just says pie dish. Put it in a pie dish. What does it actually say? Butter a baking dish that will hold the mixture. Doesn't say what size. And then I've cut it in half, so that size changes again. I'm going to measure how much of this I have, so I can then go and rummage through the basement and see how big of a pie dish or baking dish I need. Pretty tiny, I think. Okay, about 1.25 cups. So I've got an idea of what I'm going to use. I'll put this back in the bowl. It has to cool down, and it doesn't say cold, it's just cool down. So I imagine just coming back to room temperature would be fine. So that's going to take probably 15 or 20 minutes out here on the counter. And we'll come back and we'll whip the egg whites and move on. Okay, we're rolling out the pastry, and I think I've got it almost to the right size. So I've chosen this red baking dish. That should be, I think, about the right size. I think I can get, I think that's going to work. I think that's going to work. So, the recipe doesn't give me, well, it sort of gives me. It tells me to cook it in a quick oven. And this is one of those arguments that goes on and on and on and on in the comments section. If you go to certain websites, if you go to Wikipedia, there'll be a chart that tells you what a quick oven is. And that's kind of the 2026 interpretation. In reality, this book doesn't give a chart. A lot of them do. And when you look at the charts in the books from the time period, in that transitional time period between ovens that had no temperature control to ovens that did have temperature control, the charts are often at odds with each other of what is a quick oven, what's a fast oven, a hot oven, a slow oven, a medium oven. So you're left kind of to your own devices. And today I've chosen 425. We'll see where that gets us. So we'll whip up these egg whites and get them ready. I think that's good. Now, egg whites into this mixture. It's cool and it's quite thick, so we'll get the first third in and we'll just mix that in. You don't have to be overly careful with this first bit. One of the problems with whipping egg whites is often people whip them too far. They get too dry. They get too stiff, too dry, and if they separate into like a foamy layer and a liquid layer, you've whipped them too far. And even when you're sort of getting up to that point, approaching that point of whipping them too far, they are far too stiff to mix in or fold in. Now this the recipe here doesn't say anything about folding, it just says to mix. Here's the thing about, here's the thing. I often hear in the comment section people saying, back then, whenever back then was, people just knew how to cook and knew what to do. And I completely, 100% completely reject that hypothesis. Completely. If everybody just knew how to cook, if everybody back then just had this innate ability to cook everything, why do we have cookbooks? Why do we have cookbooks? Why do we have cookbooks from cooking schools? So this is a teaching text. And it says nothing about these things. This is a teaching text with some of the most basic cooking recipes you could ever imagine in it. You know, I've got teaching texts from the 1800s that told people how to make toast or fry an egg. And yet, on the more difficult recipes, they leave parts out. And so you can't tell me that a book that has something that's super simple, a recipe for something that's super simple, just expects you to know how to do the hard stuff. Doesn't work that way. Absolutely does not work that way. Okay, so rant over. Mix done. Let's cut the top for this. So we'll go around this with the knife and we'll leave a little bit extra all the way around. Not cutting into my countertop. And then try to lay this into here. It needs to be a little bit bigger. A little bit of extra rolling just to pull it out. I probably should have, in hindsight, cut the dough 2/3, 1/3, and rolled them out separately. Separately for the top and separately for the bottom. Hindsight is everything. Now, the dish was buttered because we're going to turn this out upside down once it's baked. So in goes the foam. Oh, that looks really good. It looks amazing. I did get the right size dish, I think. Oh. Yeah. That's going to be amazing. Okay, so now I cover it with puff paste. So it doesn't say anything about egg wash, doesn't say anything about how to crimp it. It does say that we're going to turn it upside down later. So what is the top is going to become the bottom. So that kind of says to me that I don't need to put any kind of egg wash across the top or a nice covering of like a sprinkle of sugar or something. I'm not going to need to do that. I'm kind of put off by that because to me, the whole idea of puff pastry is that it puffs up and that the presentation of bringing it to the table with this giant puff would be amazing. Apparently not the case. I am going to crimp the edge with a fork in the hopes that the two bond together. Before I go around with a knife and cut off the excess. And these scraps, I'm going to gather those up. I will re-roll those. They will become pâte de sœur. Just saying that makes me giggle and laugh. If you're Québécois, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not Québécois, sorry. Okay, so onto a tray because I'm pretty sure it's going to bubble over. It doesn't say anything about a vent hole, but, you know, a couple of vent holes I think would be smart. Even though I'm going to turn it over, maybe the filling will run out the bottom later, who knows? Into the oven. Book says an hour. I'm going to come back in 30 minutes because, you know, I've had accidents in the past. Huh. Odd. Okay.
Hey, Glenn.
Hey, Jules.
Sorry, I interrupted. Hey, friends.
I have some notes.
You have notes?
We haven't even got to the point where we're eating it yet, but I have some notes.
Okay, we have notes.
The recipe says to put it in a baking dish. When you see baking dish in a cookbook, that is glass or earthenware, you know, porcelain, whatever. I should have disregarded that and cooked it in a tin. I think this would have been much better in a tin, taller and not as large a diameter, and then cooked it on, I usually have a pizza stone in this oven when I'm baking pies. That would have gotten the bottom cooked much better than it is. And it would have been closer to what was happening then. You would have taken a baking dish at that point and put it into a stone or steel oven and put it right on the floor of the oven. I don't think the base cooked nicely. I also wouldn't flip it over. I would probably do it in one of these quick release pans and not flip it over because you lose the whole point of the puff pastry.
Okay, I didn't do a very good job cutting it because the puff pastry. I didn't use a knife. It's my own fault. I want to try. Can I try the puff pastry first, or just eat the whole thing?
Just eat the whole thing.
Whole thing, all at once. Okay, what have we got in there? It looks like oranges.
The
That's got great orange flavor.
the flavor's amazing.
Okay, let's try that puff all on its own.
Okay, there you go. The flavor is amazing of the filling.
What else is in there? Is it tapioca? Like what is the
No,
the pearl shaped?
It's sugar and butter. Mm-hmm. And then that's mixed with an egg yolk. And then you whip the egg white separately and fold the egg white in. And then it's got the...
So why is it okay? Why is it gray?
Well, I don't know. That's kind of odd because it was so yellow when it went in. Like it was because it's called amber pudding. The filling was very yellow when it went in. But now it is kind of gray. And I think better would be in a metal tin, quick release, metal tin, allow it to puff really high at the top, release it, serve it right side up.
So then I wonder, I'm just going to throw in a, because it is like the middle is, I'm just going to open it up so everyone can see. The middle is like a pudding.
It is a pudding. Well, that's why it's called...
So it's a pudding. So you could almost do it as a pudding and just put the puff on top.
Just put the puff on top.
Right? There's a dozen different...
And then
There's at least two
and then just,
other ways you could make this.
And then just serve it out of the pan, but right side up, allowing the puff to puff. The flavor is amazing. Mm-hmm. I'm really happy
do like
with
the
that.
middle. Yeah. There you go. So we'll probably still eat it, so don't worry. We don't waste anything.
This is good. Give it a try. Make some changes. Give it a go. Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.
And actually, I'm going to pose this question as Glen is still gnashing down, not eating his rest of the pie. Mm-hmm. What do you know about working with puff and pie in this way? Add something. Help us to learn. Mm-hmm. You're a whole lot of people with a whole lot of knowledge.
This is 1864 Scotland. Are you still making a version of this in 2026?
So many questions.
Yeah.